What took you so long to, I mean, if you joined to fly, why did it take you 9 years to put your package in?
Because, so my first assignment was to South Korea, which is a whole other story we might get into later, because that was a military junta ran it then. It wasn't a democracy. And I went back many years later, and it was a big improvement. But, so a year on a company there. I go to Fort Bliss, Texas, where I meet my future-to-be wife, Linda. Do three and a half years there. And then I go to Germany on a 3-year accompanied assignment. So we get there, have our 2 sons, and now, the timing is, that, and then flight school's almost a year long, so I count that in the 9 years, and that's why.
Right on, right on. Did you know what you wanted to fly when you put the package in?
I wanted to fly Hueys.
Hueys.
Because what I wanted to do was assault, right? Think of, back then it was the Air Cav, doing the big, multi-ship assaults, and so that's what I wanted to do. And the Black Hawk was just coming out. As a matter of fact, in my class, we had like 72 students, I think, to start with, and 30 of us got Hueys, 10 of us got Cobras, and then most of the others got 50, and there were only 6 Black Hawk slots. So that's how new the Black Hawks were, showing my age. But, so I wanted to fly Hueys.
So what did you, all right, so what did you get to fly?
Well, I learned in UH-1 Hueys. By the end of class, so you know what's happening to the airlines right now where the pilots are aging out, right? They're hitting age 65 and they can't by law fly. Well, in the Army, Chinook pilots, a Chinook transition is considered a reward, right? So remember the Vietnam War had been going on. Guys were flying Hueys, doing the assault work. If you survived it and got back, and then they wanted to send you back, the reward was you could transition to a Chinook, right? So now you're not necessarily doing assault work. You're still flying around Vietnam, carrying artillery and supplies and all that kind of stuff, but you're not really doing assault work. So it's and it's an advanced aircraft. So it's considered a reward. So if you think of like that Vietnam time frame, these guys on their second tour, so about the time I'm in flight school, these guys are all reaching 60, 65 years old, and they're all retiring in droves, right? So it's very senior heavy rank. And the Army realized they had to generate from the bottom up. So they're going to take W1s, right? And once again, you go WO1, CW2, CW3, CW4, and now CW5, which is a relatively new rank. But at the time, it was CW4 was the senior guys. So how are you going to replace those guys? The Army's plan was to take W1s out of flight school and inject them in while you still had senior people to mentor them. But who do you take, right? I mean, it's supposed to be an advanced aircraft, supposed to be a reward. So you want the cream of the crop, if you will. And the only way to do that, the metric that they have is grade point average, right? So, I
like
happen
high
to be...
school grade point?
No, flight school.
Okay.
Flight school grade point average. So you get graded on your academics, your participation, your flying. Each flight gets a grade slip, with a numerical grade, and they end up with this grade point average. There was a rumor, and it was sort of true, it depended on the class, was that if you were in the top 5 of the class, right, there's 72 of us, but if you're in the top 5, when it got to aircraft assignments, you could pick what you wanted, right? So if you wanted to pick what you wanted to be in the top 5 guys. So there were a bunch of us that were, there were probably 10 of us that were all within, hundredths of a point, 98.2, 98.3, that kind of thing. And we're competing, right? And every time you get your exams back, you'd be like, oh man, that guy, he got like 0.1 above me, he just moved up. And so it turned out that I was number 1 in the class. And a good story here about never quitting is that one of the guys I was competing with, if you will, when the assignments came out, they did not give us choice. And, we all got shoved off in Hueys, all us top guys, and he got mad, and I want to say he quit, but he stopped trying. right? So he studied enough. He did what he had to do, but he quit. He dropped from being in 98 point something to, 88 point something, right? So instead of going from an A, he went to a B kind of thing. And then toward the end, what I just talked about, the Chinook thing, the Army said, okay, we're going to do 2 slots from your class, get Chinooks, right? So two pilots would get Chinooks. And we're going to take the number 1 and 2 guy. And I happened to be number 1, and my stick buddy was number 2. And this guy probably would have been 1 or 2 had he kept going, but he gave up. And now he's like throwing stuff around the classroom. He's like, damn it, I shouldn't have quit, And it's like, good point, buddy. And I remember to this day, I use that lesson on my kids and tell them, it's like, don't get mad that you didn't get the job you wanted. Don't get mad that you didn't get this or that. Things always work out. They just do. Don't give up.
So you wanted a Chinook?
I didn't. I was actually mad that I got it.
Really?
Yeah, because remember I said I wanted to be
that's why.
salt work, right? And I'm like, a Chinook? That's bull. It's going to be like, flying from airport to airport. That's going to suck. And the instructors, all retired warrant officers, all older guys, they're like, back then, slapped me in the back of the head, right? And they're like, you idiot, shut your mouth and take the slot, right? And I'm like, but I want to fly Hueys. And they're like, Hueys are going away. Trust me, take the Chinook, right? So I did, grudgingly. And as soon as I flew that thing, I was like, this is amazing. It's one of the fastest helicopters on the planet, let alone in the U.S. Army. It's very powerful, and it's no harder to fly than a Huey. But there's a whole now conversation on that. But that's how I ended up, flying Chinooks. Learned on Hueys, transitioned into CH-47 Deltas, just before Desert Shield. And then, I flew them there, and then, I ended up instructing in those, and then, we get into the 160th, later.
Wow.